'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the web was yelling and screaming for white women dead. They'd committed the worst, most heinous of crimes. They'd been called racist by somebody not white. This isn't a story of merriment and gifts, of family or friends or saving Christmas. No, on this day, everybody went mad, for Courtney Milan had the gift of Mad Gab. Hello, Kirk Patty Cake here, and today we are getting into the drama of Courtney Milan versus the RWA. It was a battle that took place over Thanksgiving Day. How festive. How appropriate. Because we all need more fighting during the holidays. Well, I hope everyone had a good holiday, good Christmas, because, while there was no drama at my house, there was drama all over Twitter. But right, tell me what's new about that. Maybe you're like me, and you were getting ready for work on Tuesday morning, and you're just kind of scrolling through Twitter, waiting for your time to leave the house, and you see some sort of drama brewing, and you see the letters RWA, and you see a lot of people freaking out, saying racist, throwing racist around like it's somebody is dying because of this racism. And you go in, and you just see all of this back and forth and this mobbing, and you're like, okay, look at all of these people. They are so worked up. There's a racist around here. And you try to get to the bottom of it, and it doesn't make sense, and you're slowly going crazy because it doesn't make sense. Welcome to the world of Courtney Milan versus the RWA. Now, if you're not a writer, or you're not a romance writer like me, I was not very familiar with the RWA specifically. I've read a couple articles and followed a couple topics regarding the RWA over the course of the years, but I'm really not ingrained in the romance genre or romance publishing, period. So I was coming into this, fresh, not knowing any of these people, and trying to find where the story was at and why so many people were outraged. I saw RWA, had to look it up. RWA, for those who are like me, is the Romance Writers of America. And it is a romance writers association. I don't really know what it does other than brings romance writers together and gives out awards in the romance industry, but it just brings everybody together. So, wake up Tuesday morning, and this is going on. As you can see, it was probably going on Monday, because this was published Tuesday, because this was published Tuesday morning, and it said, the headline on the wrap is, "The Romance Writers of America suspends novelist Courtney Milan for calling rivals' work racist mess." Romance novelist Courtney Milan, a former board member of the Romance Writers of America and longtime advocate for tackling racism in the genre and the industry. Oh, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. So what we're going to do today is go through the claims, go through the information that has been passed around on Twitter, and go through the responses and see if we can't figure out what's going on. Because personally, as an outsider, I went in to try to understand what was going on. I asked questions to try to understand what was going on, but since I wasn't screaming racist at these people and was asking questions, I was perceived as an enemy. It was kind of like entering a foreign body and everyone saw you as a virus, so they attacked. So I really don't feel like I learned anything new. So as we go through this, I would be super stoked if you put your thoughts or your interpretations or your understanding in the comments down below, so I might better also understand this situation. And let's get down to it. The Wrap writes, Romance Writers of America suspends novelist Courtney Milan for calling rivals' work racist mess. Hashtag IStandWithCourtney becomes trending topic after author who calls out racism in the industry is disciplined by writers group. Now, racist is a pretty hectic title nowadays, typically only used against white people, and let's see how these people did wrong against Courtney. Romance novelist Courtney Milan, a former board member of the Romance Writers of America and longtime advocate for tackling racism in the genre and the industry was suspended by the group this month following complaints by fellow authors that she violated the group's code of ethics with her negative online comments about their writers and their work. The group acted after novelist Susan Tisdale and Catherine Lynn Davis filed formal complaints about some of Milan's Twitter comments and about their past novels, including one referring to Davis's 1999 romance novel Somewhere Lies the Moon as a effing racist mess. The RWA's Ethics Committee's unanimous decision to suspend Milan, a Chinese-American author, sparked an outcry from fellow members of the RWA, with multiple people resigning from the group, threatening to return their Rita Awards. Hashtag IStandWithRita became a trending topic on Twitter Tuesday morning after word of the RWA's decision, first submitted on December 11th, was made public Monday, allowing racists to weaponize RWA's code of ethics against someone calling out that racism goes against everything a code of ethics stands for. And this result is appallingly and profoundly wrong-headed, writer Alyssa Day wrote. Quote, speaking out against racism is not an ethic violation, romance writer Rachelyn Maltese wrote. Quote, I have no words to describe how I feel, okay, betrayed, and sick. Those are two words. Author and former RWA board member Tessa Dare wrote, adding, quote, I was also on the board of directors when we voted to approve the invidious discrimination language in the Code of Ethics, and guarantee that I did not vote for this byword for be nice on Twitter or get kicked out of the RWA. Milan defended her actions on her Twitter feed and questioned the RWA's decisions. Quote, I don't think you can call yourself an advocate for writers if you do not defend the right of authors to criticize and criticize in sharp terms publishers' business practices, she wrote, adding, one of the things that we grapple with when I was on board endlessly, I thought, fruitlessly, was what to do about the fact that we had racist members who were just going to racist all over the place. That's some fantastic English there for a writer. A rep for the RWA did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Just going off that article, it sounds like it could be bad. However, we do need to notice that they didn't put any of the claims of actual racism in there. They didn't put any examples of the racism being claimed. They just put the responses of, we're calling out racism and we are enraged that we are in trouble. So then we head on over to Courtney Milan's page. And by the way, all of these links will be listed in the description below, so you can check them out yourself. And also, again, if you find out anything that I could not piece together during this investigation, let me know in the comments down below, because since this has happened, I've been trying to make sense of it, but nobody will talk. So, nobody will answer questions. It's like talking to a wall. So here on Courtney Milan's Twitter account, by the way, so here on Courtney Milan's account, which, by the way, I've never interacted with her before, but as of recording this, my main Twitter account is blocked for asking questions. Cute, right? So here on Courtney's Twitter account, we can see a quote from the article, and she continues, there was a point where we could say, okay, this rises to a level that's bad enough where they could get kicked out of the organization, but microaggressions, even macroaggressions, we were basically told there was nothing that we could do about this, but education because free speech. They want to punish people for microaggressions, which don't exist. She says, how could we be a writers' organization, we said, if we don't support free speech? This showed up in the RWR official publication, and then it was like, okay, need more editorial control, then the staff needs assistance recognizing microaggressions, but still disclaimers. Now, I pretty much feel like this was all a lie. RWA accepts it that it's okay to regulate a member's speech through their code of ethics. They have just chosen to only regulate speech calling out racists, not racist speech. And the written justifications for the decision is simply that I called the person racist in derogatory terms. There is no discussion of whether that person did anything racist. It was simply enough for me to have called them that. And they did this because of the code of ethics prohibits invidious discrimination, which they parse as being unfair. There was no discussion in the ethics opinion of whether it was fair. The ethics opinion was appallingly bad. It decided that saying that a book was a freaking racist mess was something that a writer could not do. The board accepted this opinion. If the organization had been hard on harmful speech throughout, I feel like maybe there would be some way to come back from this, but they've explicitly said multiple times now, so, no, sorry, we don't know how to stop the racists because free speech. One canon of the Code of Ethics explicitly says that personal disagreements, even if harshly worded, are not a violation of the canon. To then find that personal disagreements, when harshly worded, are against RWA's fundamental principles when they're explicitly accepted by another canon makes absolutely no sense. To find that calling out a publisher for hiring a racist was against RWA's fundamental principles when RWA gave me a service award months before the complaint was filed for bringing awareness to racist practices in the industry makes absolute no sense. It doesn't seem like she's able to connect that some of these situations are not connected. Like, you received an award for doing this thing, but that doesn't excuse you bombastically going after another member of the team. Like, having a bunch of Golden Spoon awards for doing a good job does not negate having a bad attitude and breaking the ethical rules. And we'll get into how I think Courtney Milan broke the ethical rules, and she's actually being punished for targeted harassment, and not because she was calling out a racist. This isn't a free speech situation. This is a targeted harassment situation. And the one thing that and she continues in her tweets, the one thing that I can't get over is that the RWA has invested years into trying to bring the reader into, okay, maybe the 19th century. Every year we had racist, problematic books finaling, and few to zero books by women of color, especially Black women. Maybe that's just, it blows my mind, but maybe just consider this for a second. There aren't that many women of color or Black women who are, one, submitting, and two, passing the Rubicon. So from the perspective that I have from a local conference that takes place in my state, they have an awards ceremony once a year for books that are submitted at the beginning of the year. And while they're going through the books in each of the genres, they have a Rubicon of what things need to be touched on in the story in order to be awarded points. All of these submissions are blind. I can't speak for how RWA does it, but in the association in my state, all of the submissions are blind. You submit them, they are read, and they are graded on this Rubicon. So all of the stories go through the same methodic judging system. And if you end up with having few women of color, and especially Black women, make it to the end, perhaps it is not racism, but perhaps they're just not hitting what the Rubicon calls necessary for a good story. Just maybe. Milan continues, the first solution was supposed to be the judge training, teaching people about how to recognize bias and racial insensitivity. But now there is precedent saying the authors can't talk about books being racist. How can there be any judge training if RWA ethics canon forbids authors from discussing if and when books are racist? How is this a writer's organization? And then she just, does what all professionals do, is swear at random people that disagree with her. Very professional, Courtney. I am very interested in what kind of career this person has at this point in time. How is her book not on Amazon? Self-publish. Is this gonna link me? Actually link me? Hey! Well, that's not a self-publish. I bet this is another self-publish. Self-publish. So I'm going to guess that Courtney Milan is very much self-published, and if not self-published, then small indie press. Because this sort of stuff always happens with small indie. It doesn't happen in the professional world. Oh, gosh. So, anyway, in trying to get involved in this conversation, or in trying to understand this situation, when I asked what was going on, it obviously sounds bad. She keeps pointing at racist. We can't call out racist people. We can't call out racist books, which I really don't think that you should. You should just rate a book on whether it was good or bad. Did you enjoy it or not? Don't dogpile on a book, and do it in a professional, non-aggressive manner. When I was diving into this, I was constantly I was constantly told to come check out Alyssa Cole's thread because she has all of the information here. And something that she has that's actually very important to us to understanding the situation is she has the 2 complaints that were mentioned that were submitted by Catherine Davis and Susan Tisdale, and there are screenshots of the offending information, which is meant to show the evidence of racism. So we're going to take a look at those. First, we've got the complaint by Susan Tisdale. When she submitted, this is the actual document that the RWA received, so let's read through it and see what kind of information we've got. Dear RWA board members and ethics committee, my name is Susan Tisdale, and I'm a member of the RWA. I write Scottish historical romance with more than 20 published titles. Additionally, I am launching my own publishing company in October under the name Glenfinnian Publishing. I would like to file a formal complaint against Courtney Milan for blatant ethics violations for repeatedly and intentionally engaging in conduct that is at best dishonest and disingenuous. The statements Ms. Milan is making on Twitter are nothing short of vicious attacks and lies meant to injure several individuals, myself included. The codes I believe she has violated are 1. Repeatedly or intentionally engaging in conduct injurious to RWA or its purposes. 2. Repeatedly or intentionally engaging in any other act of a violent, harassing, or intimidating conduct that objectively threatens a member's career, reputation, safety, or well-being. Number 3, board members shall not engage in or facilitate any discriminatory or harassing behavior. Number 4, repeatedly or intentionally making a member's personal, private, identifying information public with the intent of harming the other member's career, reputation, or well-being. She continues, recently someone on Twitter accused one of my acquisition editors, Sue Grimshaw, of being a racist. This happened after they discovered Sue Grimshaw had liked a tweet on Twitter. See attached. You can see the original tweet was from Diamond and Silk, 2 African-American women who happen to be conservative and supporters of President Trump. Additionally, Sue liked a tweet from President Trump regarding his visiting Ohio after the recent mass shooting. All Sue did was like the tweets. After that, all hell broke loose. I could find no concrete evidence to prove the accusations of racism that are being made against Sue Grimshaw. The only evidence anyone sent me were the 2 screenshots she liked, as well as multiple tweets from other authors accusing her of racism. No one presented any definitive proof of racism. No one gave me rejection letters, email conversations, screenshots of conversations, or anything else to prove their accusations. If anyone had provided definitive proof, I would have fired Miss Grimshaw immediately, but the proof does not exist. A few days ago, Courtney Milan decided to weigh in. After asking me how many authors of color I have published, none, and as far as I know, none have submitted, and we haven't published any books yet. That's important to note. No books at this publishing agency have been published, period. The accusations of racism were ramped up. Miss Milan then went on to our Glenfinnian website and started tweeting about my company. Later that evening, Miss Milan started attacking one of my acquisition editors, Catherine Lynn Davis. Miss Milan began tweeting screenshots from a book that Catherine Lynn Davis wrote in the 1990s titled Somewhere Lies the Moon. This is one of Courtney Milan's tweets. Quote, and we've been talking about Sue Grimshaw. Someone sent me a link to a book written by the other editor, Catherine Lynn Davis, and it is a freaking racist mess. End quote. Catherine Lynn Davis is not a racist. She's a very kind, generous, intelligent 63-year-old woman who happens to be a fine writer and editor. Miss Davis was first published in 1983 by Pinnacle Books, which later became Kensington. Her legendary Too Deep for Tears rose to number 5 on the New York Times bestseller list and was also a USA Today, Washington Post, and Doubleday Book Club bestseller. She is a charter member of the RWA and a founding member of the OCC chapter. People responding to Courtney's tweet with such lovely comments such as,
WTF. I guess blue American eyes must not be as genetically potent as blue English eyes because my half-Chinese nephews have brown eyes too. Like, the only mixed person I know with something other than brown eyes is my one cousin who is super white passing, and even she has hazel eyes. I have a brother and 2 sisters that were adopted from the Philippines, and their eyes are indeed brown and beautiful. Yeah, anything with an exotic lover is cringeworthy, especially in historical romance. Just keep it European, please. Thanks. Even then, the Spanish and Italian character tropes can be quite offensive. It's disgusting. Has she been described as exotic or exotically beautiful yet? My mixed-race daughter gets that a lot from white people.
And Courtney Milan comes back in. Ding, 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 we have a winner. And here she just highlights that exotic is used in a character description.
This is all flaming hot trash, says another Twitter user, but the frequency of mixed-race Asian characters having light eyes makes me think of all those authors skipped middle school science. And this book is flaming hot trash, not your tweet. Ah. Celia Wolf says, wow, and I feel like what I learned about genetics in 7th grade makes the blue eyes thing not just racist, but extremely unlikely.
I'm sorry, but I already know of at least like one black set of twins that have blue eyes. It's not likely, but it is possible. And yes, you are getting it correctly. But all of these people are just freaking out and calling it racist because there's a mixed race person in here, Chinese and English, that looks Chinese mostly on the outside, I'm assuming, but has blue eyes. They are calling it racist as far as I can tell because it's a Chinese woman with blue eyes. The complaint from Susan continues. In these tweets, Courtney alleges the book is racist, inaccurate, and that Catherine Lynn Davis is a freaking racist mess. Her allegations of racism are not based on any kind of truth. Miss Davis has a master's degree in history and immersed herself into Chinese cultures for 6 years before she even began to write the aforementioned novel. Keep in mind, this book was written and published in the 1990s. You know, more than anything, I hate that this person actually has to qualify why she was allowed to write this, because there should be no qualifications to writing anything. It is my belief that Miss Milan targeted Catherine Lynn Davis simply because Miss Davis is one of my acquisition editors and Miss Davis happens to be white. I can find no reason for her attack. I can find no other reason for her to attack Miss Davis in this manner, certainly nothing based on the factual evidence. I find it very difficult to understand how Miss Milan could be a chair of the RWA Ethics Committee when she continually and repeatedly behaves in the manner and launches disgusting attacks against other authors and other RWA members. This is akin to putting a neo-Nazi in charge of the UN Human Rights Committee, and this is not the first time Miss Milan has behaved in this manner. Because of these outlandish, false, and vicious attacks, Miss Davis lost a very lucrative contract with another publishing company. Please note that she didn't lose the contract because the publishing house believes the lies Miss Milan is spreading. Quite the contrary. Miss Davis lost the contract because the publishing house is afraid of the backlash that would be thrown their way should Miss Milan learn that Miss Davis is now working with them. The other publishing house is afraid of getting into Miss Milan's crosshairs. Additionally, I have lost 3 of my Glenfinnian authors, not because they agreed with Miss Milan and those of her ilk, but because they are afraid of any backlash from Miss Milan. These authors are afraid that if Miss Milan starts attacking them, they will lose future contracts and sales. It boils down to them needing to make a living, and these kinds of attacks have proven to be detrimental to those on the receiving end of these malicious behaviors. To attack me is one thing, I can handle it, but to attack my editors and my authors is more than just a low blow. These claims of racism are nothing short of libelous vitriol meant to subdue me and my employees and authors into silence, and these attacks are costing us potential income. If you'd like to read the rest of this document, it will be linked in the description down below. Next, we will move on to one of her editors, Catherine Lynn Davis's RWA complaint. We're not actually going to go over Catherine Lynn Davis's formal complaint, if you'd like, because it's going to have a lot of what we're going to look at in the compilation of complaint tweet screenshots. So if you'd like to go over what her exact complaints are, it will be linked in the description below, and you can take a look at it for yourself. So this is the screenshot compilation, and we're just going to skip around in this to anywhere we need to go. So let's see what we find out. Every time I asked what had happened and why Susan Tisdale and her company was racist, this is where I was turned to go and look. So this should theoretically give us the evidence we need to determine who is racist here. Of course, we start off with somebody going to a Sue Grimshaw book to give it a 1-star rating. Remember that Sue Grimshaw, her crimes were she liked a Trump tweet and she liked a tweet by a supporter team of Trump. Down here, we've got Courtney Milan adding some of her sense into this. I have heard many stories of rejection letters, and I know what rejection from a higher up looks like. Quote, I love it, but marketing mixed it, or something like that. I have heard some of Sue's rejections, and they don't look like that. You don't get to slide away with generalities. I'm wondering why. Every editor at a publishing house and every agent ever gets to get by with generalities, gets to get by with forms, gets to get by without actually giving you a real reason, and can often just ignore the crap out of you. Why is this specific editor not allowed to have the graces that every other editor in the industry has? Here we've got somebody posting their images specifically to give them faces. You tell me what you think that information is for. Here we've got Courtney Milan saying, okay, but what authors of color with amazing voices have you ever published? Remember in the complaint that Susan Tisdale said, they're so new they haven't published any works yet. So there's no winning this argument. Milan is going after her for having not published any authors of color. Technically, she hasn't published any white authors yet either. But that doesn't seem to make a difference. Courtney Milan continues down here. She has a heck of a ton to say, mind you. Looking at the bottom tweet here, she says, Milan says, if authors of color truly aren't submitting, it's because they don't know about your house, and that's a sign of marketing failure. There are so many readers of color who devour historicals that people don't know who you are. Yikes. One, it's a new publishing house. Number two, people really don't, I don't know, you tell me, people really don't know about publishing house specifically. That's why so many authors, when they're trying to get into the industry, they don't know where to start looking, they don't know where to submit, because it's hard to find the publishing houses, the imprints, the indie publishers that are actually independent publishing or small publishers. It's hard to know who's who. I mean, I never pay attention to that stuff. I probably should as a more professional person, but I never did. And so I guess you could say that it's part marketing failure, but they're also new. They're also getting their name out there still, and they don't have an unlimited budget. I wouldn't call it a failure. I'd say it is they're kickstarting their business right now. This is really just Courtney Milan trying to flex on top of them, saying nobody knows who you are, but they know who I am. Courtney Milan says in her video, she said that they don't track or consider race when reading submissions. It is incredibly telling that she thinks that the race of people she doesn't know is white. I don't understand how those two thoughts connect. How does saying we don't track equal everybody is white until proven otherwise? Which is what she exclaims up here is, I don't know how to say this more plainly, but if you think that people are white until proven otherwise, you have a race problem. Number one, how did you get that from we don't track race? And number two, what is the problem with assuming the race of somebody is the majority race of the country until proven otherwise? If you go to Japan, I hardly doubt you're going to pick up a book and not assume the author is Japanese until proven otherwise. Courtney Milan continues down here. I really do think that nothing Susan says will be right. Stop right there. That means that Courtney Milan is going into this with the thought that there is no fixing it. The person she is attacking is completely evil, and there is no way around it. Nothing Susan says will be right. She continues, but it's not because we're being nitpicky. It's because she's starting from a place where she thinks that showing her ass is a hands-down argument winner. I don't really know what that means. And so no matter what situation, out the ass comes. Because if we don't break it down, if people don't start understanding that racism is not one thought, one way you misspeak, but the entire way your processes are structured, we won't break through. And we have to talk about the assumptions that institutions build into their decision-making processes that are harmful to marginalized people in publishing. I'm not trying to gotcha, but you're trying to run a publisher, an institution. Your processes matter, and they help shape the business. So this just seems like Milan is trying to dictate how somebody else is allowed to run their business because it's part of the bigger industry, but it really doesn't make any sense to me as you don't have any power over somebody else's business. She is way over line in telling somebody how they're allowed to operate, or she's going to shut them down because you're not doing the moral thing according to my morality. And Courtney says, and I know she's going to say, arg, everything I say is wrong no matter what I say, so why even converse? Been there. Asking any questions these people don't want to answer. And in these next two tweets, she meant she's raging over the book by Catherine Lynn Davis, saying they never saw her eyes in China because she was always looking down, and just raging. How did Chinese women not bump into things? How did Chinese women read? How did she get an education if she couldn't look at anything? And also, as a half Chinese person with brown eyes, seriously, frick this piece of poop. Because she's taking it as a personal insult, it looks like, that this Chinese mixed character does not have brown eyes. It is not a personal insult, it is character design. Just like if you make a blonde character with brown eyes, or a blonde character with purple eyes, or a brown-haired, or a ginger with brown eyes. It's not an insult to your race or your background. It's a character decision. I have read books where my faith was specifically personally debauched. It's not a personal insult. It's somebody using their creative liberty. The Marquise de Sade. I highly doubt that you can get much worse than the Marquise de Sade. Let's remember there was Pissed Christ. Let's remember that people are always mocking Christianity. Let's remember that Brazil just released a thing with a gay Jesus. You know, I don't like it. It doesn't matter to me. Move along. If you don't want to read a book about a mixed-race Chinese woman that has blue eyes, move along, but it's not racist. And here, Milan also, this next tweet by Milan also tells me that she's not going in there for understanding, she's going in there with bad faith, she's going in there for the attack, as she says, I don't trust your good faith at this point, and that's a sticking point. You laughingly claimed in your video that you were lying about K-Mat, but you know that people were largely talking about her work at Borders. I'm not sure. K-Mat. I'm not sure who that is. Also, I haven't seen anybody reference this video that they keep referencing, so I can't talk about that. We scroll further down here and she says, and why are you offering to talk to me when you're blocking black women who are saying the same things as me? It doesn't look good. And Susan Tisdale says, I'm not blocking anyone. And then Courtney says, I stand corrected. I thought I remembered that you had, but can't find the tweets. Sometimes sentiment remains the same if you replace with ignored. So, you know, she just kind of accused Susan Tisdale of doing something that she wasn't doing to try to start more drama, make her look racist. Here it just looks like we have a bunch of people mocking people, piling on. Oh, look, I bet this person is a lovely... Is that Christianophobic? Is that freaking racist? Stashy Scottishness is presumably on brand given its Glenfinnian publishing, and the company logo involves Celtic style designs. Oh my goodness. Have you seen that this publisher says they're looking for all types of historical, romance, Highlander, Regency, medieval, Victorian, Tudor, ancient Rome, etc. Highlander is not a historical period. The Highlanders are a place in Scotland. I'm sure they know that. They're talking about setting. They are only looking for the white fantasy case, Your Honor. There's nothing wrong with seeking historical European romance. There's nothing wrong with liking a certain kind of book. There's nothing wrong with liking a certain kind of genre. There's nothing wrong with liking a certain kind of setting. And these people are trying to turn wanting a certain kind of setting into a racial attack. It's not. We got Courtney Milan again in that book by Catherine Lynn Davis. Why are they just realizing that she's foreign when they know her? Because in China, they never saw her eyes because she was always looking down. Apparently, there's the blurb. It's 1870s China. I'm sorry, I don't see the issue with having a head lowered most of the time. Dun dun dun, she's partially white. You know, I'm so over this right now. Here you've got Courtney Milan getting pissed off because she doesn't know how to feel about being described as bronze as the standard Chinese color, but she knows how she feels about yellow. I don't know, do you call white people pale? Do you call white people cream? Do you call white people corpsey? Like, it's a color. Beige? That's pretty boring. Like a couch? Are you kidding me? Calm down, it's just meant to put an image in your head. This I really don't understand. So she's highlighted, I have raised you to be free, to move forward to the future, and the future is in the West. In China, shun compliance is a rule for women. What is the problem here? Most people, when they're in an oppressive area, even if they don't really know what's going on in that other area, they're always going to say, the grass is greener, go over there. I'm not saying that the West was better at certain points in history, at least at, past historical moments, but you're always going to point to somewhere else to hope that stuff gets better than how it is right now. I'm not gonna lie, I have absolutely no idea what's so offensive about this, as Lian was 25, tall and lithe, with the thick black hair and bronze skin of the Chinese. Other than her saying she doesn't know how to feel about bronze for Chinese, I really don't get what's so wrong about this. Down here, she admits that blue eyes on mixed race people does happen, but just the fact that you're using it as a racist trope. So what, you can't use it because of reasons? What? Okay, so let's double check. Let's double look at this. Don't write books about how much other cultures sucks. Don't write books about how much a culture not your own sucks. And then down here, it's set in Europe in the 1870s, well known as the bastion for women's rights. This woman needs to calm down. She needs to take some Prozac. She needs to drink a little. She needs to get out of her house. She is so serious. Anyways, if you want to read over these tweets, these messages, it's all in the description below. We're going to look at a couple more of the reactions. I'm sorry this video is so long. There is just so much to it. Here you just have one of the previous RWA members complaining about the hearing and offering her support to Courtney. Until recently, I have been a vocal presence on social media for years, speaking out loudly about bigotry in romance and publishing industry and within RWA's organization itself. I don't think I have to tell you how much I question what that sentence actually means. This fiasco first started because I and others expressed our upset about Marie Force and Susan Tisdale's publishing imprints employing Sue Grimshaw, an acquisition editor who has shown repeated bigotry against numerous marginalized members of the RWA throughout the years. I've been waiting for examples of this, and nobody has given any. All that's been referenced are the Trump tweets, so I'm sorry, you have to give me some examples of what the bigotry is. Although you are aware of this, and of course you were provided with screenshots of a private conversation I had with Tisdale herself, highlighting my and multiple authors' concerns about having her work with Sue Grimshaw, I took pains to send Tisdale extensive evidence of the real harm Grimshaw has done, from tweets she liked and or retweeted to first-hand accounts of bigotry experienced by other authors. I'm wondering where that latter is, because we've heard that she liked Trump tweets. What are the first-hand accounts of bigotry experienced by other authors? How come that has not been in any of these threads? Still looking for it. Let me know if you find some. I'd be interested in looking at it. Instead of responding to me, Tisdale chose to make a video where she said it wasn't possible for them to be racist because they were all so nice, and then soon after she came to you with accusations of racism against Courtney. What I first find baffling is how the board doesn't seem to understand the very basis of systemic racism itself. Until people of color have equal and widespread societal support that spans hundreds of years and oppresses white people based on color of their skin, it isn't possible for racism to be a real charge. This is just saying that non-whites cannot be racist against white people until white people are oppressed by black people. I don't know. Africa kills black people. You ever hear of the Barbary slave trade? You ever hear of the British subjugating the Irish? Everybody has been somebody's slave at some point. So I don't understand systemic racism garbage. It's just a way to say we can mistreat you because we haven't been your lords and saviors. That is a racist statement, Rhonda. I am also upset that Courtney, a woman of color, was targeted by Tisdale and at this point wasn't viewed through the lens of her receiving targeted racial harassment. Tisdale comparing Courtney to neo-Nazis seriously and worse. This damaging and insulting rhetoric was deemed acceptable by the board without censure against Tisdale. Revolting, horrifying, unacceptable. Why didn't Tisdale lobby official complaints against me or numerous other white women who were more vocal than Courtney about the bigotry we saw? Why was Courtney the only one called out in this manner? Perhaps it's her position. Perhaps it's her spread. Perhaps it's her leading the charge with her followers. I don't know. But I'm going to assume it's because Courtney Milan has a higher position than you, Rhonda. Gosh dang it, Rhonda. The reason is clear. Courtney is a woman of color. The RWA has made their stance clear that white authors who justly and fairly have books critiqued by women of color can simply declare they are targets of non-existent, nonsensical reverse racism. That's the first true thing said here. There is no such thing as reverse racism. It's just racism. And the fact that you keep mentioning that Courtney is non-white kind of just bolsters the fact that this is all happening because you're viewing this whole situation through white bad, non-white good. And that does make you a racist. Honest and sincere critique of books in all aspects, from craft to depiction of marginalization, are absolutely allowed and should never be punished. Courtney was well within her rights to call out the real bigotry she found within Davis's book. I did not see it. I did not see it. Anybody else? It doesn't matter. When it was published, the fact is that bigotry is still out there, harming people of color. Authors have ample support. Authors have ample opportunity to retract, address, and sometimes even rework bigoted material to remove offensive elements. I mean, it was published like 20 years ago. There's no real retracting it and refixing anything, and because you say so, no. One of the big complaints that I kept seeing was just that these freaking mixed-race children had blue eyes. Get over yourself. The only person harming Davis's career is Davis herself, and I 100% believe it was right and just for her to be called out for this. RWA has no sincere interest in serving the needs of marginalized authors. I'm disgusted by the official position that has been taken. Like, this makes it sound like somebody died or somebody was lynched. I stand with Courtney. Shame on you, Tisdale and Davis. Grimshaw is just like, phew. Phew. Until you stop letting straight white authors take the reins on an organization, you will force out the very members you could enrich RWA and help provide a safe space for those who have experienced bigotry far too long in publishing. That is what RWA should be doing. Instead, you've chosen to let Courtney be bullied and harmed by two racist white women who don't like to be called out for the harm they've caused to others. It hurts me so much. This is such like, is it just me, or does this just feel a little bit, a little self-indulgent? Is it just me? You know, and then you get into the comments and everybody is just like, yes, yes, yes. And this is why I felt like I was in an insane asylum, because I looked over this information that was in Alyssa Cole's tweets and I did not see what the frick they were talking about. And then you go into all of these tweets and everybody is just insane. There you've got this rando. I wonder if they're another self-published author. Oh, look, they're an actor. Looks, checks out. Look, checks out. And she says speaking out against racism is not an ethics violation. Well, it does if you try to bash their head in. We got a little bit of sanity in here. What the problem is what's being defined as racism. I read the docs. Appears as though Courtney harassed and falsely accused and maligned these two women. Also, the racism and hatred towards whiteness is very apparent in this conversation on Twitter. Really unfortunate. And you scroll down and you've got this guy. Another to add to the block list. Just for disagreeing. Just for saying this looks like harassment. We've got at this black magic. He's a genius right now. Okay, get ready for this geniusitude. He says, quote, "It's that Susan Tisdale is presenting herself as marginalized and speaking truth to power based on differentials in platform size. No. For a while now, a lot of people have operated under the erroneous assumption that platform size is the equivalent of systemic privilege, and that it is not. And it is not. Especially not for marginalized folk, and the RWA's decision has proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. A white, cis, straight woman with small to middling platform was able to successfully deplatform a woke woman of color with a middling to large platform simply because of her racism was called out, and the system in place upheld her white privilege despite Courtney's higher Twitter followers. So what is not happening in this genius's mindset is that there is no possible way that his person could be in the wrong. There is no possible way that his team was removed, not because of her racial color, not because of her platform, but because she did the wrong thing. And the only possibility for why she was removed from the club was because of racism, which is just a way of saying can do no wrong. That's all I'm taking away from this. One of the most ridiculous things to me is we're going to look here at Maiden Blade's tweet where she talks about how the RWA came to their decision. They used the RWA manual to dig in, to check out the ethical problems with the situation, and the ethics committee is holding to the procedural determination, meaning that it judged the situation based on methodology rather than the effect, character, and intent. This means that they applied the same standard to Courtney Milan that they would have applied to anybody else who fell into the same situation, regardless of skin tone. They have a rubric. They run through that rubric. Regardless of your skin tone, regardless of your intent, you would be judged the same methodical way. And to these people, that is a problem, because you should not be judged the same way, because no skin colors should be judged the same way. Some skin colors deserve, regardless of the details. You should never use methodology, is what this is saying to me. This podcast that was talking about it. So I asked, obviously, while I was trying to get information on this situation, I asked, is this political? Does this have nothing to do with writing? It's just political targeting? Because this whole thing started out with the Trump tweets. So I was asking if this was more of a political movement. And it turned into this, where they quoted my tweet, where I said, I've read the thread and the 3 documents posted by Alyssa Cole. This seems very politically driven to force people out of the area of writing for having the wrong political ideas. That's scary to me and not something I support. And all Print Run could do is say that this was a great example of a sort of sleight of hand used to co-opt progressive language. I don't understand what the progressive language is. If any of you could help me out, I don't understand what this claim is. To make a reactionary point, this person is less polished at it, pretty clear what they're doing, but a lot of very bad, high-profile columnists love this trick. I don't understand. Maybe somebody who's a columnist or a column analyst could tell me what is actually being said and done here, because I was asking honest questions. I just wanted to know what was going on from an outsider's perspective. And unfortunately, I had been following Print Run because I was interested in their work, but I see that they're bigots. There was one more interesting thing that I will bring up. I'm not going to bring up the tweets because I don't want to put focus on this girl, because she was willing to have a conversation with me. I had posted that day while I was trying to figure what was going on that racist was a racial slur against white people. And this woman responded to me with saying, it's not a racial slur, first off. And so I asked her to explain and change my mind. My background on it is that I only see it used on white people, particularly in the West. I only see it used on white people in my country. And it's used to shut people up, to get them forced out of jobs, to humiliate them, and to what's the word that I want? Disenfranchise them, marginalize them. So explain to me. And she told me, well, I need to go and read these books like White Fragility, or So You Want to Talk About Race. And I said, well, I've already read White Fragility. And so that's why I believe that racist is a racial slur against white people, because it cannot be used against other races. And so I asked her point blank, can non-white people be racist? And so she goes into this long explanation about systemic racism and how things are unfair and how it's about power. And so I asked her again if non-white people can be racist. She said that she felt like she was being backed into a corner. I said, no, I'm just a kind of person that likes specifics because I understand specifics better than generalities. It's for my understanding. I wasn't arguing. I wasn't there to change her mind. I just wanted her thought processes, her logic. It's the same thing that I've been trying to do in the RWA IStandWithCourtney stuff all day. Is I didn't want to argue with anybody. I didn't want to change anybody's mind. I didn't want to demonize anybody. I just wanted to understand the thought processes and see the examples of what the offending content was, and to be explained why this content was so offensive. Of course, nobody would actually have that conversation with me. And so in the end, she gave a tweet-long explanation that according to the definition she gave earlier, no, non-white people could not be racist. And personally, I felt like, okay, so you didn't change my mind. If non-white people cannot be racist, and it's a word solely used on white people to marginalize and humiliate white people, then it's a slur. As one final thing, I was talking to somebody who was also trying to figure out what was going on, but couldn't figure it out either. And I said all that I had discovered so far was that liking Trump was racist. And somebody jumped in with, Trump is racist, and if you support him, you support racism. And that feels like the bottom line of this whole thing is it started with Sue Grimshaw liked some Trump tweets to show that she supported Donald Trump. She was then connected to this publishing agency, and because these rabid people want to destroy Trump, they have this psychological, physiological response to Donald Trump. They want to ruin anything that his name touches in a positive way. They went in after Grimshaw, Tisdale, and Lynn Davis. There is a silver lining, though. While I was doing some research, I found this WTAF RWA Courtney Milan ban suspended, blah, 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 from these lovely ladies. And you scroll down. As I was reading this, I thought this is probably the best possible thing that could have happened for the RWA. From the smart ladies here, they said, I volunteered to be a judge for the Ritas, and I encouraged others to do the same because in order to perpetuate change, you have to show up and push it forward. Which means, if all of these people are now quitting the RWA, it means there will be less of this push for this kind of stuff in the romance industry, and that is a net positive. So I hope that the RWA will stick with their position and will not apologize for this stuff because they did nothing wrong as far as I can tell. Again, if you see anything that I missed, please let me know in the comments down below because I couldn't get anybody to talk to me. One of the most confusing things that I've come across in this whole situation is that the difference isn't in looking over the situation. It isn't in what exactly is racist about saying China has been an oppressive culture. It isn't about why a white woman would write about Asian cultures. It was that if you went in to ask questions, instead of conforming to the idea that this is all racism, if you didn't join the mob to say, burn her, it's a witch, burn her, oh wait, we like witches now, that's a racist, burn her. If you did not just get on the bandwagon, you were also a racist. This was about turning a non-political organization into another arm of political dissent and locking out people who don't ideologically conform. If you asked for evidence or why somebody was responding to something so viscerally, they couldn't put it into words. Nobody could. They just direct you to the evidence, which is helpful to see with my own eyes, yeah, but it doesn't help me understand you better if I don't get your perspective when I'm looking at these things. My viewpoint's not going to change while I'm reviewing the evidence. So if I say I've looked at the evidence and I still don't understand, I'm going to need you to tell me what you see. I didn't go in to fight anyone or argue or tell anyone they were wrong, but I wanted to see what they were seeing. Asking questions was an assault on their belief. I thought the whole point of this stuff was to empathize. If I don't understand you, if I don't see the world as you do, then what do you expect from me? I don't have to agree with you to understand or empathize. I don't have to want to debate you to ask questions. I don't have to be trying to set a trap to ask questions. On the case where we have different perspectives, why would you not want me to understand you better? If I flat out don't see the problem, do you want to share your perspective or not? Do you want to convince people that you're right or not? And this is a bigger problem we're facing, a conform or die situation, a condone and support or you're an adversary situation. We can't have people who disagree but are friendly. Nah, what kind of world are you from? We can't have people who see things differently. You're crazy! Have you read these books? People don't actually have conflict in these books. Their disagreements last like a paragraph. After this situation, I cannot imagine more close-minded, hostile people than those I read responding in support of IStandWithCourtney. If you take a look at the hashtags in the story, let me know what your findings are. If they're any different than mine, if you have a better understanding of the situation, because now you know my thoughts, you know the information I had, and you know what I tried to do. Let me hear what you try to do. And if you don't, and you only review what was in this video, give me what you thought of the situation from this video. I would really appreciate the perspective, and no, that's pretty much it. I'm going to use you for the perspective. Please inform me. Or you can just say it's not your job to educate me. Hashtag, I don't have one. That's it. Guess I'll see you in the next video if the romance Gestapo doesn't get me first. See ya.